So here we are, Hanson's Point Yacht Club, on what deemed to be a pretty typical day for the last half of this summer. Just got done pouring rain, and it's a little sticky out. And you know, my heart goes out to all those people in Carolinas and Virginia that had to deal with Hurricane Florence. This is supposed to be the culmination of my big vacation / cruise for this summer aboard LissaDell, which I don't know if you can see out there, kind of the gray boat sticking out in the middle there. And it was pretty much a bust. So compared to the devastation I've seen on the news, shared by sailors on the Facebook sailing groups and stuff, I really can't imagine having to go through something like that with your boat, whatever, sunk up on land, turned over, whatever, trashed. My story's nothing compared to that. But I wanted to kind of put a wrap on this video series of getting LissaDell, my 1987 Oday 302, up and running. And I was hoping to be able to share, cool sailing video and, out having a great time doing the cruise. And it just didn't happen. We had the threat of the Florence. We didn't know where the hurricane was going. So, again, I sympathize with people that had to go through it, but even just people that had to, there was a bunch of people, a flurry of activity in the week prior to the storm actually showing up, of people hauling their boats and prepping. I know people came down here on Monday and Tuesday last week and, were taking canvas down and doing all that sort of stuff. What happened for us was we came down on Saturday a week ago, and we had been planning on getting the rigging work finished. Originally it was scheduled for Monday. They approached me the week prior and said, hey, sorry, we can't get the parts from Profurl in time. Basically, they were ordering specific parts, I guess, from Profurl to finish off my furler from France, and I guess France shuts down in August. And they only fill up like one shipping container per month to send to the States. And they didn't do it in the end of August. So they were going to have to wait until the end of September to get the parts. Ostensibly do the work in October. And I'm like, well, problem with that is I usually haul my boat at the end of September. And October gets really busy, and I don't know. It's just, sometimes I just like to get it out of the water before I have to. I don't like scrambling around at the end of October trying to fit in a time to come down and get the boat out. So anyway, they said, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, can we do... There were two issues. The forestay needed replaced, and the furler needed rebuilt. And I said, would it be worth it for you to come do the forestay work, get it out of the way, and then we can just deal with the furler? If I have to, I can just leave the thing unfurled and just raise and lower it like it were a hank-on jib if I need to sail it. Still kind of hoping to get out on this cruise. So they were like, let's find out. Maybe we'll try and do it on Saturday. That way you can get going. So we came down Saturday, actually Friday night, and got up early. I was working on the bolts. There's bolts on the Profurl that seized up. There's a cool video on YouTube of a guy that was some exotic place, had to tear one of these things apart. And same issues. The bolts are like stainless. The body's aluminum. It corrodes, and you just can't get this thing apart. So I spent all morning working on the bolts. I got one of them out. I got the top two for the drum out, no problem. But the other one, it just stripped out, and then I was trying to drill it, and then of course my bit went blank into the water. And so long story short, they finally came. They said, there's a window here maybe where it's not raining. We'll come over. So came over. They got that bolt out, and of course, then it started raining, so they had to stop. And this was even before Florence, so this was just rain from the high pressure sitting over New England, pushing all the moisture in off the Atlantic. And I mean, it just rained. And so this was Saturday. Sunday was going to be a washout. And so we just said, screw it. We're not going to sit around. Like the club crews had left. They all went down to the Magathie River and then spent 3 days anchored up in the Magathie in like torrential rain, to the point where they couldn't even like get off the boat and go exploring. So I kind of figured that was going to happen. And Saturday we just said, you know what, forget it. We'll come back on Monday or Tuesday and get this work done and see what the weather's doing. So we left, went home on Sunday, and then of course the forecast called for rain all through Monday. So the rigging people texted and said, hey, you know, it's not looking good for tomorrow. Can we just schedule it for Tuesday? I'm like, that's fine. Of course, I stayed home. It was like, went to bed late, was sleeping in, and of course, get up at 10 o'clock in the morning on Monday. Here they had been calling me and texting me at 8 o'clock in the morning, said, hey, we got a window. Can we come over and do it? So I was like, you know. So we ended up deciding on Monday noontime that, you know what, we're just going to go down to the boat and we're just going to stay there until this work gets done, and then we'll go from there. And so it worked out finally. I was kind of hoping they would come back Monday afternoon maybe and do it, but it didn't really rain much. It was just kind of drizzly and humid. And so Tuesday morning came along. It was nice. We went down to Middle River by car and hung out with my erstwhile co-host on the podcast, Chris Smoker. Lives down in Middle River, so we went to the Crazy Tuna, had dinner, hung out. It was pretty cool. Came back up Tuesday morning, got up, and right away, like 7:30 in the morning, I just got up, took the boat to the dock, and they were here right after 8 o'clock. They were here all afternoon. I mean, it took like 6 hours. Took the force day off, redid it, and then what they ended up doing was being able to kind of hodgepodge some parts that they had found in their kind of miscellaneous bin. And originally they were just going to put the parts from the bottom that weren't broken on the top. That way, if they came back to fix the other, you know, replace the broken parts, all they would have to do is take the force day off at the bottom and do it that way. But then they end up finding some parts that would fit, and so the whole thing is done. So Tuesday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was good. So we took the boat out just on the river here, Northeast River, and sailed up and down the river a little bit, make sure everything seemed to work, everything seemed fine, and made loose plans at that point to potentially go out on Wednesday for the night. And there were some people down in the bay, and what happened was, like, all week we were watching Florence to see where this track is going, because there was a good chance at one point that it was just going to come either right off the coast of Delmarva or just kind of sit at the mouth of the bay and just spin, which would have not necessarily brought hurricane force winds here, but would have been gusty winds and rain and all that. So we woke up Wednesday, no wind, hot as just muggy, and looked like it was going to rain, but it just wasn't looking good. No wind. Where are we going to go? Like the rest of the crowd were further down the bay. I guess they had watched the forecast and decided to stay through the week down in Lake Baltimore area. And a couple people were coming back up and just said it was a miserable, wet, nasty, just blowing like crazy all early part of the week. Just miserable for cruising, I guess. And, we still weren't sure what was going to happen with the hurricane, and just the forecast at that point called for, I think Friday was going to be a washout. Late Saturday might have been okay through Sunday, but that was when we were planning on coming home anyway. So that's my big September cruise this year. We bailed on Wednesday, took everything off the boat we put on for the week, spent 3 hours in the afternoon sweating my ass off, putting the boat away. I took all the canvas, didn't take it down or off. I mean, I put it away good and proper, put an extra line around the sail cover, but I didn't really, at that point, by Wednesday afternoon, they were pretty confident the storm was going to hit the Carolinas and pretty much stay down there until today, Monday and Tuesday, rain. This looks like it might be the end of it, though. This looks like a front going through. So hopefully I think the storm's well past, and these are just like the dregs of it. But that was it. We kind of called it. And it kind of sucks because Friday didn't really turn out that bad. Saturday was pretty nice, but we had already made other plans, and so that's about it. That's where we're at with the boat. Hopefully, I'm here today. I'm going to spend the night in the hopes of getting up early tomorrow and having some wind, having some clear weather, and being able to take the boat out and put her through her paces. Because honestly, I haven't sailed her in anything above like 6 knots of wind, just drifting around. And that won't be it for this season. I'm hoping to go out this weekend yet. Maybe do an overnighter, because I haven't been south of Red Point, which is just down the way here. And that's the first time I haven't been out beyond Red Point pretty much since I've owned a boat. So anyway, so I'm hoping to get at least one good weekend here at the end of the season out of the way, have a good time, and then we'll be putting the boat up on the hard and moving on to other projects. So I would say right now the refit is 99% done. I mean, as far as my original goal of being able to get the boat on the water and being used is done. The rigging work's all done. I still have an issue with the motor. It's the Yanmar 2GMF, 2GM 20F, whatever. It's been chewing through the belts, where the belts have been getting loose. Like I'll run it back and forth to the dock a few times and maybe around, and then by the time I've used it 2 or 3 times, the belt's loose. So right now I'm in the process of trying to figure out if the tension arm is slipping, because I'm tightening it down as hard as I can, and if that's actually moving, then I got to figure out a way to keep that from happening. But it's possible that the belts are just wearing funny, and they're just the cheap belts from, like, the one that's on there now is a Mitsubishi belt that you buy when you go to the diesel parts store and say, I need a belt for Yanmar 2GMF. I did buy a drive belt from, I forget the name of the place, but it's the belt that's notched around, and it's supposed to be really heavy duty belts. So I got to figure out if the tension arm's moving. If it is, fix that. If it's not moving, then I got to figure out why the belts are wearing, and if maybe it's just the belts. I did take sandpaper to some of the wheels to make sure there's nothing in there, burrs or anything like that. I guess it's possible that maybe one of the bearings is going bad on the on one of the flywheels, but that's kind of above and beyond. If I have a trouble after I figure out if the tension arm's moving or not, we'll move on to that. The other thing is the mounts on the motor are spongy as hell, and it just bobs around too much when it's at idle. You got to kind of find a sweet spot for it to smooth itself out, because when it's bobbing and weaving and you're in gear, I mean the drive shaft is just bobbing all over the place, so that's not good. So you could say potentially, I still have some motor work to do as part of the recommissioning, but for now we'll call all work done for the commissioning. Couple odds and ends I still need to figure out. Like, I put ice in the ice box, and I put a plug in the hose that I thought was the drain, and after 3 days there was no water in the bottom, so it was leaking out kind of into the head area. So I was like, what is that? There's nothing in the drain plug, so obviously something's going on there. I got to diagnose that. The hatches are leaking right now. I have tarps over them so that they don't leak when I'm not around, so that they don't make those hatches anymore. They only made them for 3 or 4 years, and you can't get direct replacements. I imagine you can get something close in a new, like, Lumar hatch or something like that, but you may have to mess around trying to seat them in where they're supposed to belong, and that could cause problems down the line. So what I think I'm going to do, there's a place online, and I forget the name of it, Rehatch or something like that, that you can send your hatches to, and for a fairly steep amount of money, they will rehab them completely, put new gaskets on them, rivet all the little bits and bobs, put new glass in, you know, all that stuff. I think for both hatches, you know, the quote was something like $800 or $850. So, I mean, new hatches are probably $300 anyway, at least. So it's probably like a $200 premium to get these things redone on top of what it would cost to put new hatches in. So that's something for the off season here. I'll figure out if it's worth doing this, that, and the other thing. But other than that, I like bought a new anchor, bought new rode. You know, the running rigging still needs replaced. You know, it's not critical. It's not going to fail, I don't believe, but it's frayed. Some of the lines are pretty frayed. My main sheet is a little short, so when the sail goes all the way out, you know, I'm running out of line. So that needs replaced. Again, this will all be kind of down the road. But I would say to get the boat to the spot that it's in, and I really stopped counting, and I've said this before, but I mean, I made one of these videos like a month ago out on the water, and the Lazy Jack just fell down right before I did it. It was like, well, what's that about, you know? But I didn't like that video. There's too much wind noise. You couldn't hear what I was saying, so you're stuck with me sitting on the porch at the club looking at my boat out there before I get the dinghy out and head out there and kind of do some nutsing around. But I'm going to call it around, say, $7,200. $7,200 seems like a good number to say that's how much it cost to get this boat up and running. So, free boat for the most part. You know, I paid $200 to the guy that used to keep an eye on it for the owner, because the owner wasn't around. So that was, say, the sale price, $200. That's what we agreed upon. That's what we put on the registration materials for the state of Maryland, because they don't like it when you get a free boat. They want you to put a value on it. And, you know, things like NADA values don't really mean a whole lot when it comes to boats. You know, they made me put a list of kind of things I was going to have to do to fix the boat, to get it up to speed, and I gave a nice big long list of what I thought at the time it was going to be to kind of justify the fact that I was getting a boat for $200. Because I paid, what, a whopping $12 in tax. And again, they don't like that. But it's the reality. I mean, that's the situation. It's not like I bought a boat for $3,000 and said, oh, it was $200. No, it was a free boat, and I had to give $200 to somebody else to, you know, kind of satisfy the open debt on the boat, I guess. So, you know, what did I get for my $7,000? Well, I'm hoping that I got what it would be equivalent to, probably, if it was in the shape it's in now and it was for sale, what would I pay for it? I don't know. Probably between 8 and 12, I would think. If I looked at that boat and it was floating and I was able to sea trial it and I had the money and I really fell in love with it, I would probably pay $12,000 for it. But, you know, I'm always looking for a deal, so I guess for my $7,200, I got much more than a $7,200 boat. Pegasus, my PY26 that I just sold, was a $7,000 boat when I bought it. Everything worked. It was great. I didn't have to do anything to it for like the first 2 years. And it sailed like just a dream. So we'll find out when I get some wind how this boat sails and performs. I still don't like the keel design. There's some funky things about the boat that I don't know if they concern me, but they're in the back of my mind. But I think it'll be a capable cruiser for the bay for sure. It's definitely more comfortable. Definitely some more room to work. Creature comfort wise, it's good. I know I need new sails. The riggers actually pointed out that, as I suspected, the Pro Furl's not the original furler for that boat. They said the sail is actually like, I guess the furler is like 4 inches too short, the way it's set up, and the sail needs to be either adjusted shorter, or I just need to get new sails because they're beat. I mean, they're worn out sails for sure. So, I need new sails, whether that means I get sails made or I pick up secondhand sails somewhere. Obviously, that's going to cost me a couple $1,000s, I would imagine. Minimum, I would say $1,200. I got a decent Genoa for Pegasus on eBay a couple years ago for like $350, $400. So maybe I could find something like that, but I'm also of the mind that if I have it, I should invest it and just be set up for the next 10, 15 years. So we will think about that in the off season, but it's definitely working out as far as like the canvas, full enclosure. We had it up during the rain, and you can't see out of it to drive the boat really, but for sitting on the mooring in a drizzle or even just like a light rain, it's great. You can sit out in the cockpit, no worries. You're gonna get dripped on or whatever, but driving the boat, you really got to have like a flap open or have like the enclosure peeled back a little bit so you can stick your head out and see where you're going. But that canvas has got to be worth $4,000 in and of itself. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't know if any of you have full enclosures on your boats. The only time I've seen them is on bigger, like 40-foot boats that have, just everything to the nines. So that is like mind blown, being able to sit out there and have that kind of comfort. You know what I mean? I love having an inboard diesel, even though, like I said, I'm kind of going through belts at the moment. Need to figure that out, but it's so much quieter and just so much nicer to drive around. So it feels like a big boy boat, if that makes any kind of sense. I mean, I do miss kind of having a tiller, because you can feel it a lot more, I imagine, because like I said, I haven't really sailed this one in any kind of wind. But there's a lot more space in the cockpit, a lot easier to move around. I do have to, I would imagine, I'm going to have to replace some of the steering, like the cable and stuff look kind of ratty, so I'm going to have to do that because I don't want them breaking on me. And again, this weekend is going to be like the shakedown cruise because we didn't get to really go anywhere this past vacation week. But overall, I think now I'm finally happy that a lot of these projects are done and I can kind of breathe easier. Like I said, all the, for my $7,000, what did I get? Well, I got new batteries, basically put all new through hulls in. The rigging work obviously was more expensive than I thought it was going to be, but I got new halyards, I got new furler basically put back together, brand new parts, new forestay, put solar fans in it, hatch covers for the port lights, I guess. What else? Bottom paints, stuff like that, just normal kind of everyday stuff. The keel, dropping the keel, rebedding that, kind of the tools associated with that cost a little bit of money. There's a few blocks and things that I need to get yet that I had bought, didn't really work out, so I took back to Bacon. I'm waiting for them to sell. But I'll, next spring I'll redo them. But like I said, it just adds up when you're spending $100 at a shot. So every time you go to Lowe's or Harbor Freight or West Marine, for whatever stupid things that you're buying, it costs $100. Or going down to Bacon, like things I don't really need, but I could use this, $100. I need to get the propane canisters either refilled or replaced. I got to figure out if they'll refill them, because I hear through the grapevine that if they're too old and whatever, they won't refill them. Whatever. I got the grill up. I got to get a new regulator for that. That'll be $50-$60, I'm sure. So, I mean, it's good to go. It's functional. Everything seems to be working pretty good. It's definitely more comfortable, aside, like I said, from the leaks in the hatches. But hopefully this winter I will be able to keep the moisture out of the boat. And I might go over it one more time or two with the steam cleaner, because the carpet is still, I mean, it's there. I found like 2 spots that are dripping through the deck. So I need to get some butyl tape and repair some through deck fittings, ones for like the base of a stanchion, where I know it's getting water in there. So some of those places I might have to hit again with the steam cleaner to kind of get rid of mold and things. I'm gonna have to put some new floorboards in, because there's like 2 of them that are really spongy. Again, get a sheet of teak and holly floorboard is probably about $100. But for those of you who are out there thinking free boat, just be warned that you're gonna need to spend time and or money getting these things addressed and fixed. And I did everything but the rigging work. I did by myself, for myself, by myself, so I wasn't paying anybody to do things. There's a few electrical off-season projects. I have solar panels to put in. I want to put a battery charger in. I want to put another like USB outlet type thing in. One of the fuses that I use for actually the cigarette lighter that I plug, I have a 12-volt little handy vac, shop vac. Every time I plug into that, it only runs for 5 seconds and then it shuts off. So I need a new breaker for that. Things like that. It's just kind of boat maintenance the way you go. But again, the big thing was getting the motor running. I bought a minor kit for it to get all the belts, and of course they didn't even have the right belt, so I had to buy another one. New impeller, gaskets and things. I did buy a new fuel filter on the motor. That housing, I had to buy the new housing because one of the bleed screws was stripped out and it was leaking diesel. I put new fuel filter system on, new fuel lines. So, again, they don't sound like big projects, but, new filters, that's $100. New fuel line, that's 50, plus little bits and bobs and parts and this and that. Again, it does start adding up. When I say it cost me $7,200, now I'm trying to really, what did I spend my money on? Because those things don't seem that expensive. But the through hauls, and it helps if you have, I guess, a plan. When I first went to launch the boat, I was hoping to get by without having to replace all the through hauls. And what I should have done is, like in January, after I bought the boat, just been like, you know what? This, and this all need done. And I'm not going to even try to launch the boat until I have them done, because I don't trust them. Because in the back of my head, before I launch the boat, I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to put this boat in and something's going to leak and I'm going to have to haul the boat out. And that's exactly what happened. I was kind of taking it on faith that visually everything looked okay. And that, the keel work, theoretically, from what I had heard, had been done. Maybe it had, because I don't think that was my main leak, but definitely I think it was leaking, because that front nut that was underneath the compression post was hand tight. I mean, it was barely tightened down. And that's not a good situation. So I'm glad I did it. I just wish I would have done it all in like February, March, when it wasn't 95 degrees and humid and me sweating all summer long and trying to launch this boat. Because if I would have been able to launch it when I thought it was going to get launched, and the rigging work would have started to get done in June, we would have hopefully been done with it by July, and then I'd have been out sailing for 2 months. But the weather kind of sucked in the end of July through August anyway, so I guess it's not a huge loss. But in hindsight, I would have, I kind of had a punch list of what I knew I needed to get done, and a lot of it was just to get it in the water to sea trial it. And once I put it in the water, it started sinking. It's like, well, now I got this whole other thing that I got to take care of, and like everything else gets pushed back. So if I would have had this plan earlier, and again, I didn't have the time that I wanted. I had to work a lot of extra shifts or whatever through the early part of the summer and the spring. So that made it difficult, but it would have been a lot nicer to do this work when it was cold out or cooler out, I guess, than taking the middle of summer and sitting in the yard doing boat work. So yeah, I mean, and also I could have planned, because when I knew I needed these through hauls, like I was trying to get it done. Like, I want to get it done now. I'm here for the weekend. I want to get it done. So I'm like going to West Marine, and I'm paying top dollar for parts, and driving to Newcastle to get parts at that West Marine. And I could have went online, figured out what I needed, bought everything all at once, maybe for some kind of discount, that kind of thing. So I mean, through hauls just for themselves were $600, $700, $800 for all the parts, tools that I bought to get going on it, and just stupid. Not even hose. I didn't even buy hose. I had to cut off the old hoses for like the head discharge, and I'm never going to discharge the head, so I didn't bother buying new hose and reconnecting it. I just plugged it up and put the new through hull in, put a cap on it, and if somebody down the line wants to connect the head, they can buy new hose and fish it through there and all that stuff. But parts, getting the water heater going, and basically I spent one weekend putting the water heater together and getting it to work because it was plumbed up the wrong way. I spent another weekend basically getting the motor running, and it wasn't even right, because then I had to go and redo the fuel filters, and that was like a whole other weekend. And I only have so many weekends to do this stuff. So again, it would be nice where all right, I've got every weekend and I can plan it out, or I've got a week and I'm doing all this stuff during 1 week and I'm planning it out ahead of time. It was kind of like me showing up on Saturday, middle of Saturday, going, ugh, what do I need to do? And then maybe finally finishing it on Sunday afternoon and having to go home. So I would say, if you're getting a free or cheap boat that needs a lot of work, try and just plan for every eventuality. And that, I guess, is the other thing. If you can, if people, I don't know, I've seen Learning the Lines on YouTube. They got a free Endeavor 32. And if I'm a guy giving a boat away for free, I probably won't be inhibitive about telling you what's wrong with it. You know what I mean? Like, I want somebody to take the boat, get it out of my hair, I guess. But if you're buying or trying to sell a boat for cheap, you're going to make it sound as good as possible. I don't know what the difference is, but I got the boat, and I had a lot of questions, and the owner of the boat that gave it to me, he was a good sailor and sailed a lot, but he openly admitted, I'm not much for maintenance. I would pay other people to do things, and I don't know that he knew the extent of the problems on this boat, and maybe when he put it away, they weren't there. I mean, the boat did sit for 6 years, backing on all these through hulls, just dry rotted away. It maybe wouldn't have been an issue so much. Eventually, he would have had the issue, and it would have had to have fixed it. But and the same with keel. I don't know. But anyway, basically, if you're getting a free boat, you just got to think, all right, I need to keep the water out, I need to keep the motor running, and I need to get the rig right. And you should probably do as much of that stuff as you can before you plan on actually using the boat, and don't skimp on it, because that's what's going to bite you in the ass. And I feel better now because I touched almost everything. I kind of know the condition of everything, and I'm comfortable with it. Where if I hadn't have dropped the keel, I'd still be thinking about it. You know what I mean? It would still worry me. So at least I know what I did, and I'm comfortable with it. So I would just say if you're getting a free or cheap boat, and there's a ton of them around. There's boats up on the Hard here for sale that have been sitting for a long time. You would like to think all it needs is some elbow grease to clean things up and everything will be good. But, things rot, things break, things wear out. Even if you're not using the boat, it's even worse, I think, if the boat's sitting. And you just got to take that into account. So that's about it. So that's what I've got the boat around Thanksgiving of 2017. It's now middle of September 2018, so we're going on like 10 months of a semi sort of refit. I didn't really do anything for the first couple months because it was cold and I just didn't feel like, I guess I just didn't feel like doing stuff until it warmed up. And of course it never really warmed up until May, and then it just got hot up here in the Northeast. So I'm hoping, I'll continue to share some sailing videos as we get out, maybe even this weekend. Nothing to the degree of a polished YouTube channel. And I apologize for, the haphazard nature of this. I did get some shots of the riggers working on the boat that I'll try and include at the beginning of the video here. And maybe if I get out sailing tomorrow morning, I will put some video on the end of it of me sailing the boat. But I would just say thank you for watching. I know there's very few of you, but if you listen to the podcast, the Shooting Debris Sailing Podcast over at theescapepods.com, this is like, I don't know, the video component of said me explaining things on the podcast, which, I just figured it's nice to have a little visual to go with what we're talking about here. Again, it's not a polished video series and never was really meant to be. It's just way too hard. I don't know how Mads does it on Sail Life, does all these projects and gets it all in an interesting way on film by himself. He's definitely got a system down, and it's great to watch. I just can't do it. So here's me, the king of the free boats, because my dinghy's over there in the rack. Little Avon there to the left. That was free. And my Oday 302 basically was free. So you would think I would just have all kinds of money. So anyway, originally when I started this whole thing, I thought maybe I could break even by selling my old boat and spending that much money on the new boat. Didn't work out that way. I did sell my old boat to a friend of mine. Basically, at the end of this, it will have cost me $3,700, I guess, overall. And that's with storage, too. That's one thing I just keep forgetting that I'm including in the price, because it cost me that much more to have two boats and store this boat for the year when I wasn't really using it. I was working on it. So that makes me feel a little bit better as I'm trying to kind of figure out, well, what did I spend $7,200 on? Because there's no one big ticket thing beyond the rigging. The rigging ended up costing about $2,300, something like that. So I mean, that's work that I was never going to do myself because I'm not a rigger, and I would never trust myself redoing that kind of work. So that's like my limitation, I guess. I can do almost everything else, but I'm not going up the mast, and I'm not doing rigging work. Maybe I'll go up the mast someday to inspect things or tackle a small job or whatever. But yeah, that's the way it is. If you got any questions or comments, definitely put them below in the video comment section on YouTube, or send me an email at theescapepods@gmail.com. And thanks for watching. See you. Well, it was just blowing like snot. Remember that front I said was going through? Well, there it is. And it blew like hell for like an hour and a half. I almost didn't come out. But now, of course, it calmed down, which is par for the course when you put your sails up. But we're sailing. Looking pretty good. Need to do a little tweaking here and there. Gonna try and, well, I was gonna try and do some upwind sailing here, but don't know if that's gonna happen. Mr. Spider hanging out there. And we'll take a cruise up the deck here. You can see the sail is functional, but worn. But we're sailing. We are sailing. Try not to drop the phone here. Just doing a little sailing on the Northeast River on what turned out to be a pretty nice day after the rain went through. Looking pretty good if I do say so myself. So it feels pretty good. I mean, this is the culmination of, like I said, 10 months worth of work, and a lot of frustrations. But this is what it's all about. Get the sails up, do some cruising around the bay. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope maybe you learned a thing or two, or got inspired yourself to, not that I'm a glowing example of getting a free boat or a cheap boat and working on it, but I gotta say, based on what I've seen on some other, like I said, learning the lines and whatnot, they got an Oday, not an Oday, they got an Endeavor 32, and I mean, they're gutting the thing completely, and I didn't have to do that. So all in all, I mean, this boat is pretty nice. I mean, aside from gel coat cracks and, you know, a couple spots on the railing that, and like I said, I got a leak over here somewhere on the stanchion, just stupid stuff. The middle hatch, the one tensioner broke off a couple weeks ago. Now the other one just broke off. So like I said, I might have to do some hatch rehab and all that sort of thing. But I mean, boom, vang, lazy jacks, you know, clutches, 2-speed winches. You know, the depth is working, the speed is not, and the auto helm is working. So, I mean, it's the old black style. I had to get a new belt. I don't have a new belt on it. It's the old belt, but I bought the new belt. You have to specifically buy it for the black unit. The engine's running. The belt is kind of loose. The tensioner did not budge, so I'm going to put the other belt on later and see if that works out any better. Got a new anchor, which for the bay, Danforth seems to be the best anchor going for the bay. I mean, you can buy a Rockna, you can buy a Mantis, and, you know, I would definitely, you know, Mantis has been one of my dream anchors for a while, but I bought this one to replace the one that I had, a Hydro Bubble, which is kind of like this weird early 2000s anchor, and had an old rusty Danforth that I just didn't trust the shank. So I got this actually at Gander Outdoors for, what, $79 with, it came with 100 foot of small road, so I had to buy a bigger road, but you know, that was like $60, and you know, 14-pound Danforth is what you need on the bay. So not a bad deal. Like I said, lines, running, rigging is frayed to some degree and dirty, and probably needs some updating. There's a couple blocks on the reefing line that need redone eventually, but you know, other than that, I'm not going to complain one bit. So anyway, thanks for checking us out. Hope you enjoyed the process to some degree anyway. And we will catch you on the flip side. Go over to www.theescapepods.com to listen to my sailing podcast called Shooting the Breeze. And maybe we'll see you all at the boat show in Annapolis in October. Peace. Sail on.